Well, good morning to all. We're back. We're back. We're back at last. Pat, you have no idea the number of people who've been rapping on my door, sending me emails, hand delivered letters saying, "Where are you guys? Where is Pat especially? Oh, come back, come back. We can't manage
Oh,
life without you."
yeah.
Do you realize that?
Come back.
You may laugh, you may
Remember,
laugh. These poor people are in sorrow. However, their sorrow is now ended. Here we are again.
yeah.
Okay.
Remember the old version of "Come Back, Paddy Riley" to Bally James Duff. Remember the crude version, "Come Back,
I
Paddy Riley."
do.
She's not pregnant at all. Anyway,
Yeah,
as you were saying,
I saw that. I saw that one time on TV. Okay, let's start with the serious stuff, Pat, and that has to do with the infamous Soldier F. And apparently, the judgment's going to be made today. Um, I don't know. Are we allowed to hazard guesses as to what way it might go?
not really. Jude, as we speak, like I don't know unless you know the verdict. I don't.
No, I
But
don't
all
either.
I can say and all you can say is Bloody Sunday has left a legacy that has tainted relationships on these
Ah,
islands and in
yeah.
Derry and in the north. You know, the three strands. It's affected the relationships, and Jude, the families have spent what now 1972 to 2025. What's that? 53 years. Looking for judgment. But here's the point, Jude, and you know, let's humanize us. The vast majority of people shot in a day were teenagers, young men, 17, 19. Jackie Duddy was the first, and you can keep on going. And one of the people I didn't know now was Willie McKinney, who worked in the Derry Journal, and I spent almost 40 years in the Derry Journal, but between one way and another, well over 30 anyway, and all the rest. And Jude, every birthday, every Christmas, every wedding, everything you can think of, and those families, there's somebody missing. And I
Yeah.
remember there's a girl who I used to work with told me a story, and I'll not bother naming the family, but the one night, the winter's night, shortly after the killings, one woman was missing from the home, and everybody got wild, sort of comes out. This is only a couple of weeks afterwards. This is how trauma inducing it was. Anyway, she was missing. And anyway, eventually somebody says, "Come on, we'll go up to the cemetery." And there they went up and found this mother putting blankets on the a grave. She says, "He'll be cold in there." Did you know that?
Dear, dear,
Jesus,
dear.
that sort of, Jude, and I'm not going down this road, but I keep thinking, and like the parallels. What's the legacy of Gaza going to be?
Yeah.
But we're not going there, Jude, because that's a different
Oh,
argument.
no,
But
it's
the
a
point
different,
I'm,
right? It
yeah,
seems to me almost, I think if somebody came from outside and said what you've just described, that people were shot, 13, 14 people shot dead on Bloody Sunday, 1972. And now like, one of the guys is being tried for shooting them in 2025. I mean,
yeah.
that's just unbelievable. And I think we know the reasons for that, and that is that they
I
want
did.
to keep it under wraps.
As we don't know either he's innocent or guilty. We'll just leave that. We'll park that for a minute. But let's know. There's no. I don't think there's anybody with a brain. The British government and all the rest of it cynically blocked every which way any prosecution can take place. Witnesses are dead. Witnesses are got Alzheimer's. Former colleagues of this guy are now in care homes, etc., etc., and all the people who could have given fresh evidence, and keep in mind, Jude, let's get this clear. The Savile inquiry said those who were innocent. And remember our friend, the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, said, I am not here to justify the unjustifiable type thing.
Mm.
Right? Just keep that in mind no matter what happens today.
Yeah, indeed. But I mean, well, I'm just struck by the amount of time has passed. I'm struck by the fact that there was more than one soldier involved, and it
Yeah.
just makes me speechless. I think even McCann's view maybe is the best one in that in a sense there's no point in talking about the guys who ran into the bogside with the guns. It's the guys who ordered them into the bogside with the
Yeah.
guns.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's leave that sad story. And there is a verdict going to come out about the guilt or non-guilt officially of Soldier F. So we leave that until it happens. Let's talk a bit about that. I don't know if you had a chance to read that email. It was an email that I sent to you that a friend of mine sent to me. And he lives in the south and he's giving out stink about the way the campaign has been covered, the presidential campaign, that is. And he insists that the RT is what he's thinking of, and the newspapers down in the south are thinking of being even-handed in terms of the blame that they ascribe to each of the candidates. He says the whole thing's a smear campaign. It's appalling. Would you have a similar view that it was a tilted reporting of the campaign for both candidates?
Jude, I do think there was an element of it. Now, I wouldn't go so far as they sort of said it was the worst I've seen. No, definitely not. But Jude, there was definitely the establishment, the Irish Times and RT. There seemed to be a lot, I think, I don't know, was it you said it the other day, but I read it somewhere anyway, that there was, when it came to Catherine Connolly, there was a lot of hypotheticals and making up stuff. Would you employ somebody if they come out of it? Jude, what the I'll say it. What the fuck has that got to do with anything? It was ridiculous. Catherine Conley, should be judged on her own what she said, what she's done, her behaviour. Now, they originally tried. No, remember the famous one? What do you call him? The former Ivan Yates. They said I'd smear the bejesus out of her. And I think towards the end, there was quite a substantial element of that. Dude, last Saturday night, I was sitting in this, I'll not name the person, but up came a thing from a former Fine Gael person I knew. If Catherine Connolly is elected, it will not be long before the IRA Army Council is having its meetings
Oh,
at Aris and Outron. And
where
I
did
thought,
that come?
come
Where
on,
did who said
legitimate
that, Pat?
criticism.
Who said that?
I'm
Who said
just going
that?
to, no, I'm not going to say it, Jude, because it was just a farmer person,
Was
former
it in the
Fine Gael
newspaper?
person.
I saw that.
No, no, it was on social media. Right.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
right. The next thing is this deep fake video of that Catherine Connolly is pulling out of the race that appeared on Tuesday. Now, I was listening to the guy on David. He's the political guy
McCullough,
on RT.
David McCullough,
What?
David
David
McCullough.
McCullough. He's made some sort of comment that this was not done by two guys in the back room type thing. He says very professional. So I would love to know who the hell was behind that. And then so there's just and here's the thing. Now, by the way, let's get this clear. I think Heather Humphreys is a lovely woman, and I genuinely think she's a very nice woman and a very good woman. But hey, there's something about she just didn't gel. She just didn't hit a chord. And Heather Humphreys, by all accounts, and everybody knows, she's a genuinely good woman. But hey,
Yeah,
Jude, you said it yourself. This is, and I'm a northerner, so are you. But there was something about her accent and about her voice and about everything. The contrast was absolutely very visible. Here was Catherine Conley, very nice, calm, speaking with slow and very articulate and all, and and all he could get out of Heather was and all this sort of stuff.
mm.
Jesus, hey, wind it down a wee bit, and it's stupid things like that. But the other thing as well, Jude, I wrote it down because there's one thing Catherine Conley said, and I actually just she says well, there's one thing she says, irrespective of whether she's elected or not. I says about her campaign. I hope it sends a very positive message that they should. This is to the government that they should reflect on the way they have approached the campaign. Also, there's a gap between what the government are seeing and what people are seeing on the ground. You can see it everywhere we go. The people are crying out for honesty, integrity, and for a different vision for this country. Jude, I think that's true. I think people, including myself, and I know what you think, are sick and tired of the same old. Michael Martin, Simon Harris. Jude, if you go to Dublin, what was? Oh, Jude, simple thing. I went through the channel, or not channel tunnel, the port tunnel on
Yeah,
Monday.
you're taking the
Four
scenic
pound on the
route.
way in. What?
Yeah.
City
If
route.
you're
Four
doing this
four pound.
channel tunnel, you were taking the scenic route.
I was taking the city route. But it
Yep.
cost €4 on the way in and at €12 on the way out at about 5:30. Now, Jude, I was thinking to myself, if I'm living in Dublin, if I have to go through the port tunnel, because, and by the way, Jude, the alternative to go through all the shit of the day, traffic wise, maybe for an hour and a half through
Oh yeah.
heavy traffic, 5 yard stop, five. So you go through, and if you have to do that on the morning, €12 or €4 or whatever it is, maybe peak time on the way evening, on the way home in the evening, 5 days a week, Jude, you're probably up maybe 120, €130 just going through the tunnel a week. Can
Mm.
anybody afford that? A cup of coffee was sort of €4 50. Jude, and then let's not even talk about some of the things going on. No housing, rent way over the top. You know, um, just a whole standard of living. There's been all sorts of raids. Well, not all sorts of raids, but things going on in the city west area of the city. Maybe it's time the government sort of looked at what they're doing and had an overall plan. We're supposed to have 8 billion surplus
Yeah.
this year, Jude.
Yeah.
So what's going wrong?
Yeah. Well, I think you're dealing with two things there, Pat. One is the election campaign, and the second thing is the state of uh, inequality, I suppose, in the South.
Mm.
Incidentally, your negative take on the South will be there's at this very moment in a room somewhere, a TUV scribbler is scribbling down every word you say as grounds for never, never, never having a united Ireland. Let's talk very briefly about Catherine Connolly and Heather Humphreys. I agree with you. Heather does kind of exude a kind of a decency, and a kind of a rural decency. I don't know if yeah, she is from the country. There is a kind of a rural decency there, I think. But
Yeah,
I actually think there's no question that Catherine Connolly was far, far more in charge of her brief as well as being softer of voice and clearer in her articulation of her ideas.
yeah,
I would blame the people that were running the campaign for Catherine Connolly. She knew the subjects that were going to come up. She should
yeah,
have been able to do, as Catherine Connolly was doing, uh, referred to Article 5, subsection 2.
yeah,
I thought that was very impressive with Catherine Connolly. Again and again, she did it as somebody who knew what she was talking about
yeah,
whenever she
but
was
yeah,
discussing some issue. Whereas Heather tended to say, well, I really think there should be a change there. Or, it was a general thing with her. So
uh,
I think I would blame the people running the campaign, at least in part, for the fact that, and I'd nearly bet the farm on this, that Catherine Connolly is going to have a massive victory tomorrow. That'd be my
uh,
guess. Would you say that?
yeah. What do you call it? I think it's as a David Young from the Press Association. I read him this morning,
Yeah,
and he says the last poll out, I think last night was that it's a 45, is it to 2026? I think it is.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and by the way, no, it's well. There's also just I have to throw this in. Apparently, 10%. Jim Gavin is still getting 10%, and I think there's someone like. By the way, somebody else can do the math. On this. There's someone like 21% undecided. Now, Jude, you'd probably work on the basis undecided. Maybe it'll go half and half. No, no,
No, it
10 or
won't.
11% to what do you call
Uh,
her?
yeah, maybe,
Heather
maybe,
Humphreys, maybe 10
maybe.
or 11. Maybe either way, but still on the basis, Jude, if that poll is accurate, there's a 19%. Like if that is accurate, Catherine Connolly's going to your hump home. But as
She
she
can.
said, she's taken nothing for granted. That when they were talking to the media, we were talking to her yesterday. She said she got 3 hours sleep on Tuesday night. That she was up next morning and she was away all day canvassing yesterday.
Uh,
She's away all day canvassing today, and tomorrow's the poll. That's up to people then.
yeah. She made a point when she said she'd only got 3 hours sleep last night. She said, "I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. This is part
Yeah.
of the job." I thought that was a very
Uh,
wise and very good thing to
By the way,
say.
to revert to your other point, Jude, Catherine Connolly, the one thing you left out of that thing, she's got a background and isn't she a barrister?
That's
So
right.
she would have,
Barrister
and she would
and
have
a
good grasp
psychologist.
of legal detail.
And a psychologist. I think both those things
Uh,
kind of showed. Um,
aye, but when you mentioned Article 5.2 type thing,
yeah,
that's the old legal training.
yeah, and that is quite impressive, I must say. I don't think the people who ran her campaign, Catherine Connolly's campaign, did a very good job. Once, and
You
I
mean
mean,
Heather Humphreys? You mean?
sorry, I mean Heather Humphreys, of course. The fact that Ivan Yates was able to come out, allowed to come out with that, will smear the bejesus out of her. I mean, that was a death knell for I think for Heather Humphreys.
Aye, but
Um,
you know the thing about it, Heather says, I don't listen to him, he's got nothing to do. But hey, he's
too
from the
late.
same gene pool as herself.
Yeah,
He's
too
from
late.
the Fine Gael thing. He was a farmer minister, and in fact, at one stage, he was in the running to be leader. And the fact that he said it on air or anyway, or in the media, and in fact, you're 100% right. I think a lot of people just said, wait, there was uh, 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 traces of that smearing the bejesus out of her anyway. A lot of the stuff. Jude, Kimberly Collar wasn't asked about making up stuff about what would she do in the event of a
Oh,
nuclear war, something stupid like that. Just all hypothetical. See, when they start asking hypotheticals, on air, you're going, wait a minute, this is ridiculous.
yeah.
Ask somebody about what they have done. not about what they might do.
Yeah, that I've dreamt up. The other thing I was going to say, Pat, is I'm convinced, and I'm sure it's not a wild guess or a very far bet, but she's going to. I think Catherine Connolly's going to win this. I think that's going to be important. Besides for Catherine Connolly, it's going to be very important in politics in the Dáil because the one thing, like if you have Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael together, they're very very strong and they've held power
Uh,
forever. So how are you going to break that sort of stranglehold? Well, the obvious thing is for the parties of the left to combine, and
yeah,
they haven't been able to do it. They kept on, trying to row their own boat. Sinn Féin tried to row its own boat, but even when it got a massive, the biggest count of any party, it still wasn't able to form a government. But I think that this, how can I describe it? Three-dimensional example of what
yeah.
happens when the left and Sinn Féin work together. I
Uh,
think that should be a lesson that will go home to Sinn Féin and the left and to voters generally that when the left combine and when Sinn Féin's behind, um, anything can happen. They can do things I haven't even dreamt of. There were people when I said this started. I remember talking to a guy and he was talking about the presidential election, and I said, I think there's a lot of wind behind Catherine Connolly. He said, why do you really think she's going to win? Look at Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are going to be too much. And at the time, I felt stupid for having said that. I thought Catherine Connolly might win. It did seem to be logical that the weight of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would be just too much. But there you are. You see,
uh-huh.
events, dear boy, events.
Uh,
I
uh,
just think it's wonderful to see it in real time, so to speak. And I think that that should be a lesson that the left and Sinn Féin should take to heart and put into practice the next general election, which incidentally mightn't be too long, given the fact that Neil Martin has made himself, I was going to say a rude word, but he has really screwed himself up with regard to the choice of candidate. And there's a lot of
uh,
despite his being very emotional and repentant at that Fianna Fáil meeting afterwards, there's a lot of people in Fianna Fáil are very, very cheesed off with him. And it's the old thing of people, you get fed up looking at the same face eventually.
uh,
Even though, Pat, here's a little factoid I bet you didn't know that Micheál Martin is a cold water swimmer and does
I
cold water
didn't know that.
swimming even on Christmas Day. I can believe that.
Yeah,
Always
yeah,
looks as fit as a fiddle. So there you are.
yeah. But you're dead right, Jude. I think there's a sort of nearly an arrogance, and that I never noticed before. Michal, I think now because of the fact that he took Fianna Fáil back from the dead, that it's now probably back nearly near enough where, well, not near where it was, but it's now in government. He's
Hmm.
the Taoiseach, and he's been feted, and and I think he brought. What I was amazed at, Jude, you can only judge what you hear yourself. And Pat the Cope Goller is a very experienced old hand Fianna Fáil. And he was on the local radio station here in the morning about the whole Jim Gavin debacle. And normally he would play the safe card. When he was asked straightforward out, would he support Micheál Martin, he refused to answer.
Wow.
In other words, he was basically saying, No, I'm not happy. And a
And
lot
you
of others
look,
are not happy.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, finish, Pat.
No, no, but the whole thing, Jude, is, and your substantive point, Jude. I think, remember Brenton Behan's the one when the left got together type thing. The first thing on the agenda was the split,
Yeah.
right? This time they coalesced and stayed together. Maybe there was a wee bit of slippage somewhere, but Jude, the bottom line is there's a big message there, and Jude, there's two Irelands. There's the Ireland that's done well, who have the gold-plated pensions, who have got their nice houses, who have got their nice cars, who can go on 2 holidays a year. And then there's Ireland that, because of the wealth and all the rest of it, that there's those who are struggling and, so on. So, Jude, I think the left represents the workers and I'm being very crude here, but the Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, are they what represents our generation, for want of a better expression?
Well, I think another point that strikes me, and then we'll move on from this, I think, is when, what was his name now? Neil Kinnock. Neil
Hmm.
Kinnock, when he was defeated, when he was expected to win, he was defeated. And I think he said to the it was him that said to the Labour Party members, remember how this feels. Remember
Right.
how this feels.
Yeah.
In other words, you really feel sick to your stomach. You've lost. Remember it. And let's see if
Yeah.
you make sure it doesn't happen again. I think it'll work kind of like the reverse sphere. And I think Sinn Féin and the left should be saying to each other, if Catherine Connolly goes into the RS, they should be saying to each other, remember what this feels like. This feels
Yeah.
good. Let's see if we can do that the next time.
Aye,
Um,
well, you're right. Remember Alex Ferguson, the time United lost the Premier League
hmm.
and Chelsea were the visitors. They had just won it the year before. He made them stand outside and applaud Chelsea onto the pitch. And he says, now think how that feels. They should have been doing this for you rather than you for them. And I suppose there's always a message to, I think the left has got to realise unless they stick together, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, Middle Ireland, even by the way, I heard Heather Humphreys says, I believe those in the centre should come out and,
Oh,
vote
yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one person I thought disgraced himself, but it was predictable though, and that was Alan Kelly. Alan Kelly of Labour, said how very publicly that he definitely was going to vote for Heather Humphreys, despite the fact that his party are right behind Catherine Connolly. Personally, I think the very obvious thing to do is to take the whip from him. And if he wants to be an independent, let him be a bloody independent. It's ridiculous that you would have the party officially behind Catherine Connolly, and that you have this guy that everybody knows about, this wild man down in Tipperary or wherever, saying, no, no, I think I wouldn't vote for her. I
I
want.
think Alan thought he was going to be the next, what do you
That's
call
what
him?
it is. You put your finger on it, Pat.
Uh,
It's sour grapes. That's
Great.
what it is.
Yeah, he thought he was going to be the next Dick Spring, that he was going to be
Yeah,
the Prime Minister of Taoiseach or Deputy Taoiseach or whatever it all,
yeah.
and so on, because he took over and he was certain he was going to lead it. He only lasted about 2 years and he was unceremoniously dumped. He thought he was I watched him on TV and I thought, you're arrogant, you coming
I
across,
don't,
you know,
yes, I agree with you. He's very
yeah.
passionate, but there's an arrogant passion.
But my view is the only one that counts. And he was dumped out. He was unceremoniously dumped after, Batchik as in, and I think he sort of saying he was just waiting his opportunity. This has been badly handled. There wasn't enough discussion and all this sort of bullshit. And
Hmm.
by the way, there's a guy in Donegal, I can't remember his name off the top of my head now, came out on the local radio sport, and I think Alan Kelly's right now. But hey, if Southern Conley goes into the Irish with a 20% majority, they'll show how out of touch they were, So,
Mhm,
anyway,
okay, let's move on to what, and it was mentioned actually in the debate. Oh, incidentally, just in terms of costume, did you notice what Heather Humphreys was wearing during the last debate?
no.
You don't notice these things, Pat? Well, she was wearing a silk top of a light shade of blue,
Yeah.
which which sort of figures. I'm sure that was chosen deliberately.
Fuck yeah,
Blue
yeah.
shirt, blue shirt.
But
Okay.
sure, it's like Trump wears those red ties, the red states all the time,
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter what he wore. If he wore, even if he wore the uh, hammer and sickle, it still wouldn't change
But
him.
by the way, no, even I've just what's the respect? Just a quick segue from that. What did you make of the reaction to the Virginia Giuffre book publication and Prince Andrew and all that sort of stuff?
Well, I tell you the truth. This is a part of my answer, and that is that I think it's sort of sleazy and greasy and distasteful.
Mhm.
I think here's something that I'm sure I'll be crucified for it if people could get their hands on me. I think in the public there is an appetite for things sexual. Sexual
Mhm.
crimes really get the readership and the viewership up on their high horse. And this is a case of a young woman who apparently was under the age. I mean, she looked quite happy if she was under the age in that photograph of Prince Charles, or not with Prince Charles, with Prince
Andrew.
Andrew. So, I'd have some reservations about this thing about her being a child. The other question I'd ask was, where the hell was her family? Where was her
Mm.
family? I mean, if she was underage, where were her family allowing this to happen? Uh, as it
I
stands, it's
think
just disgusting.
allegedly the photograph. Well, I think it was a to use
Oh,
that
they said it was
term.
doctored. Yeah, they said it was doctored. I don't believe that for a
No,
moment.
no, no. I think the family was, to put it mildly, dysfunctional, and I think the photograph was she was 17 and
Mm.
apparently very attractive. Now, keep in mind, this wee girl either they said she committed suicide, and there are those, usually conspiracy theorists said that,
Funny,
it
that
could
never
be more
crossed my mind.
sinister, and that
Never crossed my
uh,
mind. Would that not be? I mean, I don't. Not that I don't think they're capable of doing it. I mean, I would reference back to Princess Di. Who knows? We don't. Uh,
uh,
but was it a bit
sorry for
late
cutting
in the
across you.
day to be killing
But
her? If you're going to kill her, because all her stuff was released, all the bad stuff had been loaded onto Andy.
but can you imagine if you're going around now in the studios doing
Yeah, yeah,
interviews?
yeah.
Like that would be much more telling.
That's
But
true.
secondly, hey, Jude, come on, look, someone I don't like conspiracy theories, but see, sometimes when the evidence sort of, the Epstein, what do you call it? He was in jail. The two guards fell asleep. There's
Mm.
3 minutes missing from the tape. You tell me
Uh,
that's not suspicious?
Yeah. Somebody said to me, I saw somebody saying, how did Epstein go from being a maths teacher, which I gather he
Yeah.
was, to being so super, super rich? Can you figure that out, would you, or do you
There's
know?
never been a proper explanation of that, and he's only had a couple of clients. How did he get those clients? Jude, let's be clear. He was 100% Mossad Israeli plant. He was there to blackmail. I would presume the money was funneled to him to bring him. He had Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, George Mitchell,
George Mitchell.
Donald Trump. George Mitchell apparently was out in
See?
Ireland as well. Now, whether he got like a lot of people went out innocently, but
Yeah,
there were other people engaged and stuff. So
yeah,
who
yeah,
knows what, you know? Uh, but anyway, here's the point, Jude. He was there to court for a whole lot of reasons, but apparently I had Prince Andrew, of course, and so on. So what went on out there, and they reckoned that he had video evidence, so whatever. Dude, there was a couple of from the APAC, the Jewish lobby, who were giving him serious, serious money. Now he also was involved with Gillian Maxwell,
oh, yeah,
whose father, or Robert, is buried on the what is it on the Avenue of the Heroes in Israel. And
yeah,
the Prime Minister said this man has done more than even we can tell publicly. So what's all those connections?
yeah, yeah. Pretty greasy, pretty sort of, I don't know what. Anyway, in a way, it's crude, but in a way, she's the young woman who's died is having a revenge from the grave because this
Uh,
book of
uh,
hers is going to sell like nobody's
I
business.
don't know how long we've left, hey, but can we? You mentioned the Sam McBride.
Yeah,
What do you call it?
yeah. Well,
Footnote.
4 minutes, Pat. Something over 4 minutes.
Right, you know more about this. But Sam McBride and Fintan O'Toole have written a book about the pros and cons of United Ireland.
Mm.
Sam, of course, is from the Loyalist, not that's unfair to Sam. He's not the Loyalist. He's from the Unionist tradition, and Fintan is almost from the Unionist tradition as well. So I don't think Fintan will ever qualify as a Green Nationalist anyway.
No,
But anyway,
no.
what's your view?
Well, I thought at first I thought this is going to be is Finton's from the south and he'll take a United Ireland stance. It just struck me as being an odd person to speak for United Ireland, and that Sam would be from the north and he wouldn't. And then when I listened to it, it seemed that Sam was the Republican or the United Ireland person, and Finton was the guy who was pointing out the obstacles. But then as the interview progressed, there seemed to be a degree of agreement that maybe that was the way things were headed. I think the bigger point is that those guys, two prominent, very prominent journalists, maybe two of the top journalists in Ireland, are talking about a united Ireland and what
Yeah.
needs to be done, or what would the circumstances be that would be bad to have a border referendum, and what circumstances would be good to have a border referendum. I think, Pat, in the last year even, things have really ratcheted up in striking terms. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Jude, the whole thing about partition is now far stronger, and it's growing, by the way, since
Listen, Pat, just before
1921.
we go on, it's not just us. It wasn't us that started this, you know. I know you'd probably think that all this surge has come from our conversations, but I think while it contributed a massive amount, I think there are other factors. Okay, go ahead.
No, but it was no, but since no, since partition in 1921, they've tried to calm the whole idea down. It's growing at a massive rate. It really is growing at a massive. It's now out in the no unionists. I remember various people said don't talk about it and so, all the rest. Why? Even I think Alex Kane sort of said they're running away from it, and that's true, Jude. But it's out there. The demographics have changed. Let's repeat it all again. Belfast is no longer a unionist dominated city. Derry's no longer a unionist dominated city. The six counties no longer unionist dominated. Sinn Féin is the biggest party. And four of the six counties have got nationalist majorities. What more do you need
Yeah.
to say that this is an issue?
I think more and more people are accepting that. And it's only a question of time before the Irish government and then the British government will have to concede that it is an issue. We've only about a minute left, but I'd still like to get your reaction to this thing where there's talk about making Fáilte Ireland, which is the sort of tourism body for the
Or
south, making it for the north as well. So you'll have a common branding
yeah,
between the two. And this has raised the hackles of TUV and company like that who
yeah.
really don't want to have this kind of
No
thing.
cross border. No, no, yeah, yeah.
What would you say? It's a good idea to push for this, or should we be putting it
Absolutely,
under
Jude.
wraps?
Absolutely. Like some of those people would rather starve than eat, just for to cut off their nose to spite the face, and any other metaphors that I can use. But Jude, it's when people land in Ireland, the Americans they don't know which part's which. It's an island, Jude. And some of these guys should wake up. And by the way, I bet the hoteliers in Belfast and along the down coast would be delighted if this happened.
This is the thing. This is the thing. I would judge this move, Fáilte Ireland, across the island in terms of will it work? If it doesn't work, then I'd say don't use it. If it works, certainly use it. But as you say, there are people, TUV people, maybe DUP people, who even it meant better tourism, even this new branding worked, they would still be
Yeah.
against it because it has this dreaded word Fáilte. And I'll tell you something, to some extent they're right. To some extent they're right. I think it's
Mm.
another pebble in the mound. Would you say?
Yeah, but here's the point. You know,
You're
see
nearly time's nearly
Belfast.
up now, Pat. You have 10 seconds.
See Belfast and Derry are now booming tourist wide.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
helping the economy.
Aye, aye. Okay, Pat. That's great to
All the
talk to you
best, Jude.
again. And
And you.
we'll get together when the election results come out and say a word or two. Okay.
Okay, Jude.
Okay, Pat. Thanks again.
All the best. Bye.